have Karlyn Armstrong here. She's the Senior Water Resources Engineer and Water Project Mitigation Coordinator for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, where she coordinates CPW's involvement in the development and implementation of fish and wildlife mitigation plans for water projects across the state. In addition, she provides water rights engineering support for Colorado Parks and Wildlife water projects and water court interests. Prior to joining CPW, Karlyn worked as the water resource engineer for the Colorado Division of Water Resources. Karlyn holds an engineering degree from the Colorado School of Mines and a master's of public administration Colorado, Denver. Outside of work, she can be found hanging out with her husband, young, real quick, and get started.
And Karlyn for joining us again this year. I remember we all really enjoyed your presentation last year, and I just want to add to that list of fun things that Karlyn enjoys that I got to do with her last year was river rafting during our Water Leaders program. So Karlyn is a graduate and alum of our Water Leaders program. If that's something that interests any of you, I encourage you to speak with her about her experience going through that program. But without further ado, Karlyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Cool, and thank you for your patience with me. I'm so sorry about that. I had a calendar mishap that was totally my bad. So I'm really happy to be here. Good afternoon. I really appreciate WECO having me again this year. And this program and everything WECO produces is just such high caliber education for the water community and for everybody that engages with the water community. So I'm really grateful for the chance to participate in this with you. As Stacy and Jayla said, my name is Karlyn. I'm with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and I'm going to be talking today about the nexus between water management, recreation, and fish and wildlife resources. This topic is incredibly broad, and you'll get more information on it later this afternoon as well. But for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the topic from the CPW water team perspective. Pressing the right button here. So I'm going to start today with a review of CPW, our water use, and the CPW water sections program. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife is an enterprise agency within the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. And it's our mission to perpetuate the wildlife resources of the state, to provide a quality state park system, and to provide enjoyable and sustainable outdoor recreation opportunities that educate and inspire current and future generations. And in 2022, we're celebrating 125 years of serving Colorado, which is really exciting. So guided by our conservation principles, our mission encompasses all of CPW's work, from managing 960 species of wildlife, 42 state parks, and more than 350 wildlife areas, covering approximately 900,000 acres, as well as management of fishing and hunting, wildlife watching, camping, motorized and non-motorized trails, boating, and outdoor recreation. So we really are in ecosystem services, recreation, and ultimately kind of people management across the state. So just a little more background on CPW structure. Our agency is divided into 4 regions, and within each region are a number of areas. And it's within the regions and areas that a lot of the boots on the ground work gets done. And we have water specialists in each of these regions. It's our local CPW staff that are engaging in thoughtful water management every day to enable success in the agency's mission. The water section, on the other hand, is a statewide support section to enable that local success. And so we work on a statewide level to support folks across the agency, those boots on the ground, getting that work done. And why I bring this up is because the presentation today is really going to focus on the work that the water section is doing. There are a myriad of other ways. There's so many ways, there's no way to dive into all of them today. So I'm going to give you just a little glimpse To succeed in our fish, wildlife, and recreation, it works within Colorado's prior appropriation system, which you guys have been learning about, to exercise our water rights portfolio to benefit a wide array of CPW interests, which include reservoir and in-stream fisheries, hatcheries, wildlife habitat, recreation, threatened and endangered species, and drinking water for our state parks, and more. And I'd argue that there's probably no other entity in Colorado that has diverse a portfolio of water uses as Parks and Wildlife. So how we use water on each individual property is dependent on the circumstances and the goals of the property. So the following slides are going to demonstrate a few ways CPW uses water across the state. The first is on our state wildlife areas. We manage approximately 350 state wildlife areas, many of which support an $843 million hunting economy. On some of these properties, we use water in very conventional ways, such as irrigating corn or other crops that folks are used to seeing on agricultural fields. But we use them for less conventional reasons, such as providing overwinter habitat and preventing game from eating neighboring farmers' crops. In other instances, we use water in less conventional ways, such as irrigating shallow water wetlands to support wildlife habitat and for recreational hunting. I'm sorry, my old dog just got up and it is very loud. CPW also manages 42 state where we provide drinking and water opportunities to our visitors. In 2021, CPW had more than 19.7 million state park visitors. A lot of people management as well as property management, as I'm sure other folks could attest. And parks, interestingly though, if you're at a state park reservoir, chances are CPW doesn't own it. We rely heavily on relationships with our partners to manage these water bodies, since CPW doesn't control the water rates or reservoir structures that are enjoyed by our visitors. He's really stuck, so if it's too loud, let me know. I'll get him out of here. And then one of the less conventional ways CPW uses water is for fish rearing. Fishing in Colorado is a $2.4 billion economy, with many of those dollars going to rural areas. CPW has 19 hatcheries around the state that stock over 90 million fish in Colorado waters to support sport fishing and species conservation. Those hatcheries don't function without a continuous supply of fresh water. And so CPW has water rights that are specifically designed for fish rearing purposes to be used at those hatcheries. And I did want to just detour for a second because there's a fun little video of one of the more fun ways that CPW stocks fish in the state. So I'm going to change over my screen. Bear with me here. Okay, can you see that? Perfect.
These fish that we're stocking today are, they come from lake up behind Pikes Peak. They're all just went up and spawned the fish, brought the eggs down. We brought the eggs down to Mount Shavana hatchery and eyed them there and raised them up. And they're about 1.25 inches long today. We will be stocking about 70,000 of these from the airplanes today. In northern
outlet, so we're always at the lowest point of the road. They're so small that they don't have a lot of mass to them, so their acceleration rate's pretty low. They stop pretty quickly as they go out of the plane, so our cue is once the strut passes the edge of the lake, we can dump, depending on what the winds are doing. Then their heads are kind of the heaviest part, so they tend to go head first and just drop straight into the water. And the idea is to be slow enough that the water somewhat stays with them, and also that they don't dry out on the way down. So that's why we're dropping them low and as slow as possible. I've been doing it about 18 years. It's still fun. It's still one of the favorite parts of my job.
Bye, sharing over here.
When we agreed to be roommates, we said no.
YouTube's gonna give me another video. Bonus. All right. So just one of the more fun ways that we get fish across the state, those 90 million fish that we raise every year. There we go. So that wraps up just a brief overview of how CPW uses water to support its recreational conservation goals. And as you can surmise, CPW actively manages water to support our agency's mission across the state. This involves wearing many hats, including acting as a domestic water provider, irrigator, habitat propagator, and fish rearer. While this work is never dull, it requires a lot of active conversation and thought to make sure we're balancing all the different interests at the table with all of our different partners. For the next portion, I'm going to turn to some of the programs and activities the CPW water section engages in to support CPW's mission. Now, traditionally, when you think water section, water resources, a lot of folks think of in Colorado about water rights management, and we definitely do that in the water section. However, our work extends far beyond traditional water rights management. The following slides represent just some of the work, water, fish, and wildlife resources. So River Watch is one of the water quality programs run out of the CPW water section. It's a statewide volunteer water quality monitoring program operated in partnership between River Science and CPW. Stewards to monitor water quality and other indicators of watershed health and utilize this high quality data to educate citizens, support, and to inform decision makers about the conditions of Colorado's waters. This program is unique in its statewide focus, entire watershed from top to bottom, and it's unique in its frequency collection that provides the same scale of monitoring or school resources, because we do have a lot of students that help in this work. The data collected is used in Clean Water Act and water management decisions, federal and local agencies, nonprofits, and individuals. And all River Watch data is publicly available. Warmer temperature water where there's a high nutrient load. It's a growing concern because cyanobacteria can produce a range of cyanotoxins that are toxic to liver, kidney, and reproductive organs. And some cyanotoxins are also toxic to nervous systems. It's unpredictable whether toxins are going to be used by cyanobacteria. There's active research going on at the EPA and USGS to better understand these toxins and what triggers the production of them. But they are here and they're in Colorado across the state. And so it's important to be looking out for signs of them. And some signs of cyanobacteria producing toxins are dog, livestock, and wildlife fatalities. Also, it can create some serious illness in people. CPW monitors for cyanotoxins at state parks and wildlife areas across the agency. And we also work with a bunch of partners just continuing to understand the state of the science and where this issue is going. So if this is something that you think your world intersects with, you can learn a lot more on the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's website. They have a toxic algae dashboard that's a great launch point. And of course, if you have any questions or want to talk to CPW about it, there's we have a point staff within the water section that works on this issue. So turning from water quality over to water quantity, I want to touch a minute on the CWCB in-stream flow program, which CPW is actively engaged in. So just a little history, not sure if you've heard about this, talked about this yet in the class, but prior to 1973, the water rights system required that a water user divert water out of the river to put it to beneficial use. And it wasn't a beneficial use that you could make under prior appropriation if you didn't take the water out of the river. There was no mechanism in the water rights system to keep flows in the river for environmental preservation. So to address increasing concerns about the health of the Colorado's rivers, the legislature in 1973 established the in-stream flow program. They gave the Colorado Water Conservation Board the exclusive authority to appropriate or acquire waters of natural streams and lakes as may be required to preserve the natural environment to a reasonable degree. So CWCB can create in-stream flow rights for streams to protect defined flows on a designated reach, and within lakes to protect waterline elevations. And these in-stream flow rights are administered in the prior appropriation system, just like all other water rights in Colorado. CPW is engaged because we're tasked with providing the biological support for the development of in-stream flows. So we provide biological environmental flow determinations for acquisitions of in-stream flows, and we actually provide in-stream flow recommendations for new in-stream flow appropriations across the state. So we have staff that work extensively collecting data, measuring flows across the state to figure out where in-stream flows would be appropriate and at what level.
Karlyn, if you could start wrapping it up in a couple minutes, that'd be great.
So the last area I want to touch on is water project mitigation. It's another area we spend a lot of time on as a section, as an agency. It's also where my personal focus is. We're facing continued growth, drought, and climate change, all of which are stressing our water supplies. And one of the tools to address the need for new water development and shortage of water is new water storage. There are a number of water storage projects being developed in Colorado right now. And here's just some pictures of some of the ones that are hot on the topic list right now. But the thing about water projects is that all reservoir development has pros and cons. It helps our water supply shortage, but it also has permanent significant impacts to the state's fish and wildlife resources. So CPW engages with water project proponents to develop fish and wildlife mitigation plans to find a balance between the development of our water resources and the protection of our fish and wildlife resources. And this work turns into formal fish and wildlife mitigation plans that are produced by the state of Colorado and play a role in the permitting of these projects. So that's a lot of staff, time, and energy goes into the development of these plans. So CPW engages in a broad range of activities to support its mission. When it comes to the nexus between water management, recreation, and fish and wildlife resources, there are no easy answers. Everyone needs water, and we have to find ways to balance the need of our population and our ecosystem, and of our aquatic and wildlife species. So we're always looking for creative solutions that create win-win opportunities. And this work is best done with traditional and non-traditional partners with intentional thought and consideration. So in whatever capacity you guys are working, we would love a chance to work with you if you have creative ideas on this. Hope you found this interesting, if not informative. And as we look at some examples of this nexus, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of CPW's entire water team listed here, and open up the floor for questions.
Thanks so much, Karlyn. Oh, that's a great photo too. I just love that video. I hope everyone else got some enjoyment out of it. What questions do you all have for Karlyn? Give them a minute to find their hand button. Let me see. All right, we'll start with Allison.
Okay, I'm sorry, mine is not more specifically water related. It is about the plain stocking of the fish, because I've seen this before and I'm like, what? So when they're doing that, I mean, I assume it has to be safe because you continue to do it all the time, but it seems like a very high velocity and long distance for the fish to fall. So how do they make sure that's safe? And then also, do they ever like not land where they're supposed to, like out of the water?
Those are all really great questions. And I am probably not the best person to answer them for you, but I can definitely connect you with someone who is more expertise in aerial stocking specifically. I would have a hard time imagining they'd keep doing it if they didn't have a reasonable rate of success. I'm sure that it's not perfect, but as they mentioned in the video, that the fish land heavy side down, which helps break the tension of the water and gets them into the water safely. So, I mean, they've been perfecting this over a number of years.
Thanks, Karlyn. Jerry, go ahead.
Hi there, thank you very much. I thought recently there was some stream bank renovations that were done with your organization and another partner for a kayaking course, but I can't place where that was at. I was trying to find it real quick, but if you know what that is, could you expand upon it?
So we work on stream restoration projects and development of facilities within rivers across the state all the time. So there's probably a number of projects that we're working on at this point. Probably can't get too specific. I will say though, the development of kayaking courses and other recreational opportunities in the river has been a really interesting one for us, because at times they can actually prevent fish passage because of the hydraulic jump that goes through to create great whitewater kayaking opportunities. And so there's been a real evolution in learning on the development of these structures to make sure that we're providing the recreation opportunities that folks are looking for and also still maintaining fish passage through the river.
Thank you. Allison. Oh, maybe your hand
Sorry,
wasn't up
yep,
again.
I was muted. I did think of a actual water related question. Just can you talk more about kind of the partnerships? I think the city of Aurora has worked with you all at some points to kind of do some trading of water rights or providing augmentation water for recreational facilities. So how do you kind of work through that process and those relationships to make sure that you have the water that you need for recreational and other purposes?
That's such a great question, and is its own seminar in and of itself, but I'll try and provide a shorter answer for you. So there's kind of a couple different ways that can happen. If we have a property where we know we're short water, we're going to be going and seeking partners to develop augmentation plans and the other things we need to make sure that can do the things that we need to do to have a successful management program on our property. And then, we'll usually be reaching out to partners about that, looking to find solutions and work with folks to trade water or enter into contracts, whatever it may be that we need to do. But there are always new opportunities on the river that nobody thought would be possible. And sometimes we find really creative solutions with water providers and other entities that maybe they have a reservoir that they can tweak these flows a little bit during spawning season to enable more successful spawning operation of a rainbow or brown trout, right? And so some of these things happen through local meetings or people reaching out to us saying, hey, I have this really cool idea for the river, and I want to talk to the biologist or the water section or whoever it is at CPW that can help me flesh this out and look at engaging in partnerships. So whenever you guys have ideas, please call us. We're always happy to have a conversation.
Thank you. And Karlyn, I'll just add, as someone that's involved in a couple stream management planning processes around the state, Colorado Parks and CWCB, Colorado Water Conservation Board mentioned it this morning, and we're going to hear more in detail about those. But the Colorado Parks and Wildlife people are integral to those, like fact finding and science, understanding the river, and then identifying objectives, locally led objectives for what they can do to improve the values they care about. And so CPW has been a major force in all of those, and we really appreciate that work from them. Okay, any other questions for Karlyn? Okay, well, Karlyn, thank you so much. We really enjoyed your presentation and really appreciate you being here. So let's give her a round of applause. And thank you.
Thanks for having me so much. Have a great one.
Bye. All right, everybody, we'll go to break and come back at 2:45, and we will see you promptly then.